You're listening to The KYLO Show, the podcast where we talk about how to keep your love on no matter what and why whole healthy families are going to save the world. And it starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The KYLO Show. I kind of sang that just now. I was really excited.
A little music.
I was a little excited.
Little sound of music going.
Something. I have a funny story to tell you about Ben and I that we just recently discovered.
Oh.
And I thought I should share it with everyone.
Okay.
So we're in the kitchen. I think Anna was over, and Mom's in there. And we started talking about Adeline's name. I don't know why we're talking about Adeline's name. For you out there, it's Adalyn.
It was because we brought Lincoln's hat.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Something like that. So Adeline then says, Dad, Olivia spells my name, because we call her Addie, spells my name how you spell it. I said, what do you mean how you spell it? She goes, Dad spells my name differently. I'm like, what?
Yeah, he spells Delaney's name differently, too.
So we then had this huge discussion on you're spelling our daughter's name differently than how it's spelled. It's her nickname. It's not her whole name. But I've always spelled Addie, A-D-Y, only one D, because she only has one D. He spells it with two.
Yep.
And
that's why it's always confused me. How do we spell this name?
Which makes sense why you say this, because I didn't know this. We're having this whole conversation about what? And then Mom says, yet again, another things your parents do completely opposite, which was really funny because it's just the theme of Ben and I's whole life together is we are as different as they come down to how we spell our child's name.
Yeah, we went backpacking one time and Ben spelled out Delaney's name in sticks, E-Y.
I wasn't there.
And I was like, is that how you spell it? He goes, I think so. She was little. She was little.
I remember you taking him backpacking, so I'm sure she was very little. But
she was little.
Oh, so then I said, well, Addie, how do you want it to be spelled? She goes, your way. I said, okay, Dad, you're doing it wrong. Then it was just a whole other thing, but it was pretty funny.
Gosh.
So, yeah, we learned that, I think it was yesterday, that Ben has spelled Adeline's name Addie with two Ds. It was pretty funny. I'm glad we could all laugh at it, but it was really... And then we had this whole moment of, I don't even know you. we were playing, but it was pretty funny. So, good times. All that to say, you should probably laugh at the incredible differences you have with your spouse rather than get angry at them, if you can.
It's 18 years later?
Yeah, it'll be 19 in October,
Yeah.
so... Oh, we've been together for a long time, that's for sure. We're still as different as possible.
Yep.
Yeah.
And discovering new things about those differences every day.
We were in Mexico, and we had these apples in our gift basket thing, and he's like, I don't really like those ones. I only like green Granny Smiths. I said, that's what those are. He goes, they are? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, I like the red ones. I said, oh, like the soggy red delicious? He goes, no. I said, oh, like pink ladies? He says, uh-uh.
Like the Fuji?
I said, like Fuji apples? He was like, no. I said, like Gala apples? He's like, why do you know so many things about apples? So then we're laughing again. He's like, he literally
the red
stopped.
Ones.
He's like, what
I like
is happening?
the red ones, not the green ones.
I said, Honeycrisp. Oh, so, I mean, again, just keep discovering all the fun to be had with your spouse because it's pretty entertaining. But we're going to do questions today in this episode. We have so many that have come in. We love them. So we want to keep helping you out with answering
Thanks
questions.
for all these questions.
Yeah. Always fun.
Yeah.
You can go to thekyloshow.com and submit your question and testimony there if you didn't know. But today's first question we have comes to us from Josh.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. This is Josh Haas. I had a question I thought I would like to ask the two of you. In some of the work that I do as a pastor and just kind of helping people walk through their life situations, the issue of substance abuse often comes up. And I think you're both familiar with the idea of the disease model, which basically says that addiction is a disease and not just a choice. And I wondered what your take on that was as it lines up with just the idea that we are powerful and we make our own choices. Is there a place for the disease model in what you're doing, or do you feel like that's outside of it? Love what you guys do, and thank you so much.
Well, I mean, it's treated as a disease in a medical model, you know. So when you have medical intervention and insurance to charge, it's a disease. When you are working through, behavioral consequences and choices, then it's choices really, and it's going to come back to that anyway. I think the 12 steps and those types of interventions are super effective, largely due to changing somebody's perspective on life, their surrounding them with supportive communities and getting discipleship or mentoring or sponsorship and that sort of thing. I'm coming down on the side of, it really is a deliberate consequence of decisions, because we don't, I guess at this point we do consider smoking. We don't consider smoking a disease. We consider the consequences of smoking a disease. Everybody that's drinking doesn't have a disease, but once you debilitate your life with destruction, that's seen as the effects of a disease. So it is, and we try to make people powerless by saying things like, well, it's not really your fault. You're genetically predisposed to this. And I think that is really damaging. And I think it's really a mistake that you would say, this happened to you because of something that your parents did or whatever. Like, well, or you decided to participate in something that was destructive and you continued in it, just like every single person that ends up in this situation did. So was there a choice? I think that the choices are different for everyone up until this light your life on fire point. But what did you do about it? What did your life look like? How did you handle those early signs that this is a problem that you need to help with? What did you do about any of that? Nothing. Boom. Okay. I don't think this happened to you. I think this was very much the consequences of a series of bad decisions. And why we would ever build a model that creates a powerless victim is beyond me. I don't know why we would do that, but I've seen it done a number of times, and you can know the dangers of your decisions and do them anyway. And it happens all day. I mean, some people make a living out of it. Jumping canyons on motorcycles and stuff. You're like, wow, that's there's something in human beings that say happens to other people, but it won't happen to me. They have a clinical word called denial, but denial isn't just related to addictive behavior. It's also related to other things that are destructive, like domestic violence and dysfunctional relationships and bitterness and fear. And there's just lots of ways to apply denial that if you carry on, you will end up in these life-altering, destructive situations in life.
The closest example of substance abuse that I know of is our uncle, and watching him when we took his son. I think I was 16 at the time when we ended up with him, somewhere right in there. And, watching my whole life, I think at 5, I was holding up signs, pray for Uncle Ted, because in my mind, he just smoked a lot. He had a cigarette problem. That wasn't the reason. That was the reason why he didn't have teeth. That was
Yeah.
my ability to understand at that point. And so my whole life, he's been, until the last probably 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe longer, 20 years almost, probably.
Yeah, it's
Close
got
to
to be
20.
close to 20
Yeah.
years.
He's been clean now for 20 years. But the first portion of my life, watching every time we were near him, living in poverty, living in chaos, living in filth, living in just pain.
Danger.
And I mean, he's the kindest, sweetest human and just loves people, but just trapped in this cycle and belief of powerlessness. And when his son was taken, that was the
Wake-up call.
that was it.
Mhm.
And then he became a powerful person in this area for sure, and just chased after it. And I remember when he purchased his current home where he's at, how much excitement and ownership to his life of just these accomplishments that he was gaining. And he's the same Uncle Ted I've always known. He's never was scary for me, but he has changed his life radically and this way, and even trying to create a different outcome for his son. He's doing what he can, but it is a powerful choice. Like that's what changed. Is he made a choice, and I think that's the part for me watching this. It's hard to. I understand all of what you're saying. Getting pushed into the medical field, but it's just so much about choice, whether you're fueled by pain or vision.
Yeah.
And he finally wasn't enough pain to have a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a beautiful story.
Yeah, he's a great example of somebody that just, I mean, he hit bottom. You thought a couple times in his life, like, okay, that's it
That's
right
it,
there.
no.
I said, nope.
No.
There's a whole nother 10 stories to go. Like, who knew that? And but when he went through that experience, it lit him up, and he set records in the local county of a father who did the work to get his son back. It was just so impressive, and that it lasted. And it became a brand new chapter in his life. That was so refreshing to watch.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'd be praying for, is that there's this moment where people that are struggling with substance abuse can find a powerful yes to choose. And I think our support and community, and I mean, walking through it with some other people, it is such a rally of community.
I think
it's also knowing the balance of can't work harder on someone else's problem than they're going to.
Right. And so much at the core of addiction is the inability to find the satisfaction of intimacy. I just am unable or unwilling to make the adjustments to get that euphoric experience of my heart touching the heart of another human being and protecting that and living that and being able to do that on a number of levels of relationship. When your fear and your willingness to forgive and or your willingness to be honest, when that reaches a certain depth of pain and entrapment, you're encased in this place where you cannot see the hope of ever experiencing love. You still have this human need to go get that euphoric experience, and so you start trying to get it through controlling money or sexual interludes or pornography or cocaine or alcohol or whatever it is, you start to replace that connection with isolation through control. You start controlling things, and you think that you're in charge of it. You push the button and you get the release. You push the button, you get the release, and that ongoing lifestyle is what eventually you realize, oh my gosh, this button doesn't work and I can't get out of this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm addicted.
Yeah.
And breaking out of it really is you have to learn to trust God again. And you are going to have to do the work of cleaning up your mess and telling the truth. And it's not any different from anybody else. And if they take a different path, like if you try to cover up the symptoms with medicine, you're just now addicted to something else. You just pivoted to, okay, well, I will stay in this condition with this thing that I control. I take one in the morning, I take one in the evening, and I broke out of that. So it is very much an area that we try to help people with, but it's not. We haven't hung a shingle of breaking addictions, but it's very much the toolkit that the KYLO 5, I would say.
Yeah.
Here's your toolkit.
Oh,
And a bunch of people that love you.
Yes, for sure. Well, great question, Josh. I think it's I love what you're doing and just the knowledge and heart of helping people. So obviously he's a KYLO 5.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great place to start. So awesome. All right. The next question that we have comes to us from Susan.
Hi, Danny and Brittany. My name is Susan. My question is, how would you open a conversation with someone who's not familiar with the KYLO principles when you want to try and find out the depth of connection they want with you? What type of clarifying questions would you ask? Both of my parents have passed away, and I have one brother. Our relationship growing up was distant. He's now married, and him and his wife have been difficult to connect with. Since my parents have been gone, things have been up and down with them. I find myself being treated dismissively by both of them, and that's hurtful. I have 4 nieces, and I'm building relationships with them. Some are more connected than others. I find that I'm the one who reaches out to stay connected the majority of time with all of them. I would like healthy connection with all of them since they are the only family I have left. Whenever I am with them and the visit is coming to an end, I always let them know that I love them, but seem to not hear the same from them. But I don't stop letting them know they are loved. I would just like to understand what depth of connection my brother is interested in, willing to have with me, and to understand how to be a powerful person through all this. Thanks in advance for your suggestions.
Tricky waters.
Yeah. I mean, it might be a good place to start with just having a conversation with her brother alone rather than his wife as well, but maybe just the two of them. And, I love you guys. I want to be a part of your family. I don't know what you need from me. It might be, I don't know what the hangout space, because obviously she's still allowed to participate. She's, it sounds like there's a scheduling restrictions, but it's hard to know. She's still getting yeses, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not fully dismissed, and she still's got access to the kids, which is, as a mom, that communicates, obviously, I'm not afraid of you because you still get to hang out with my kids.
Which is what I was going to lead with is, am I scaring you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you afraid of something that I'm bringing or introducing to your family?
Yeah.
And if he says no, you say, okay, great. But I think what she's picking up is they grew up in a family culture that fostered distance.
Totally.
And so he is the one of the leaders in a family that quite possibly is really comfortable doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So she comes in looking for connection. I don't know how old she is or how much or what her family situation is, but she sounds like she could be a single woman who's got friendships that are connected. And so that's her relational culture. And then she comes over here and she goes back to her family and like, oh my gosh, it's still the same way.
Yeah.
And every time I try to connect, this family grew up with no handles. There's no place to grab onto here. And so I have to grab them. And
Which might be a little overwhelming.
And they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Violator.
Right.
Danger. And you're like, okay, that may be scary. It may be also enjoyable, but they don't really know how to participate. So I wouldn't come in and be the teacher of culture. I would come in and find out, how are you experiencing me?
Yeah.
And then be open to feedback and say, that you telling us all you love us 10 times while you're here, that feels weird.
Yeah.
Like we don't say I love you.
Sure.
And she'll go, oh, that's what it is.
Too much.
Oh, because I'm an affirmation love
Yeah,
language, and I'm trying to, I'm fishing here like, hey, love me, hey, love me, I love you, love me. And none of us are affirmation love language here. If you could just help wash the cars, that would be great, or whatever. That may be something that she needs to find out is it's just the introduction of two cultures. Even though we grew up in the same place, you went and created a different culture.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah.
I got mom and dad's culture, and everybody can be disconnected here. And we're okay with that.
Yeah. Which definitely she's going to have to figure out if she can be around that and be okay with that it's not going to go deeper or look like her other relationships potentially. And it sounds like some of the younger or some of the nieces might be more receptive. Maybe they want a little bit more of a connection, and that might be the most connected relationship she has in this family are the nieces. And I love the idea of, asking how you are experiencing me and getting some good information, because she still keeps getting permission. So there's some kind of, it is okay.
Yeah.
But there is a resistance. So trying to figure out what that resistance is, if it is just too much, or if it's a confusing message or uncomfortable. Maybe they want this, but they don't know how to. I'm definitely not trying to jump in and lead someone else's family culture without being very clearly invited to give that input. That's a dangerous place to play.
Yeah. And there's probably, like when you travel around, you have to carry this little bag of adapters, because you have this, US plug that you plug into the adapter, and then you find the one that fits their plug, right? And it everything works fine, but it wouldn't work at all if you didn't have that adapter. So she may have to come up with some kind of an adapter that comes from understanding, like, yeah, we're a little freaked out by the number of times you tell us you love us. Like, okay, adapt. That is really my anxiety, and I'm trying to get affirmation when in fact they do love me simply by the fact that I'm here.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to change your family culture or judge it, adapt. I'm here to connect. So how do you guys connect? How do you connect with each other? I don't know. We have a whole family full of introverts that like to just sit in the same room and read. Like, wow, that's weird. Because she's
Higher eye.
Let's get out a board game and let's, play Pictionary. Let's go mountain biking. Like, no. So whatever. Whatever the adaptation is to connecting to a family culture that feels very different than yours, be willing to find that adapter.
Yeah. And the love languages, you mentioned that before. If they're not familiar with it, the best way to find out what they are is to pay attention. Is usually that's it's pretty clear I'm an acts of service person if you're around me for very long, because I'm constantly doing something. So you jump in and help me clean the kitchen after a meal, or say, why don't you go relax outside and I'll finish this. I mean, those are all, but you just have to pay attention a little bit. Or Ben, if you're around him very long, he's telling you how awesome you are all the time, or how much he noticed this, or he's intentionally doing all these things verbally. Again, it's kind of just paying attention if they're not wanting to take the test or not familiar with it.
People tend to speak their native language,
Yes, they do.
So even this is how you learn about children as well, is they'll give it up by the way they show love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just pay attention to the way the people around you show love to the people that you know they love, and you go, all right, duly noted.
Yep. That's your adapter. Another one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right, Susan, praying for you, learning how to adapt and find the right ones so you can connect better with your family. Okay, well, the next question we have comes to us from Alex.
Hi, I have a question about offering choices to kids that have special needs, such as autism. I have a student that I work with who has a condition that mimics autism, and I know from his mother and from my experience of working with this boy this year that sometimes offering him choices can be quite overwhelming for him. And that's just made me wonder whether I need to do things a little bit differently with this boy in terms of offering choices and keeping my love on with him. I would love to know what you guys have to say, and if there's any kind of variations we need to make for kids with disabilities and doing KYLO. Thank you all so much for all you do.
I think one of my favorite stories of working with kids was we had a gal come in that was a special ed teacher and that worked in our nursery staff, and she loved applying these tools with the kids because she loved being able to see, the empowerment that they got from it and not limiting them. And sure, there was some adjustments. I will say there's definitely was some adjustments made. Every situation was different, but they created their own room for kids with special needs and had all of these amazing stories and testimonies that came from it. And I know even now down in Sacramento, Melinda, she's got a background in working with kids with special needs, and she's like, your tools are what work. And when I'm in there, and all the teachers are wondering, why does this work? And she's like, because they want to feel empowered. They want to have control. And so briefly, yes, it does work. There are some things that you might have to adjust if a child becomes overwhelmed with a choice. Maybe the choice is, do you want me to decide for you, or do you want to pick this one? And if they don't respond, okay, I'm going to pick this one for you. And this kid, and I think that's the beauty of you. It's still very much what we do, but it's having a connection with this child and knowing when maybe they're on the verge of having a not good moment. Okay, well, adjust your strategy a little bit. And I think the outcome's been, in my experience, I've worked limited with different kids with different things, Fragile X syndrome, autism, Down syndrome. Those are, but I've seen success. And yes, sometimes there's a little adjustments, but I'm always impressed by, these totally work.
Yeah.
Same thing. They need the same thing.
Yeah. People are control freaks. We're just kind of designed that way. We want to decide things that affect us.
Mm-hmm.
And I am aware, that special needs children often thrive in routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so as much routine, as much consistency as you
Yeah.
can create around them, they will, they'll flow, they'll be undisturbed. And if you can introduce making choices into the routine, then it can really help.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we think well, because I'm dealing with somebody who's obviously challenged and having a hard time right here, I'll just bark out some commands and then I'll just power struggle with them until I get my way. And that is a tough road to take because battling with other human beings is when you hopefully finally discover you don't control anybody.
Yeah.
Never did, never will, no matter how small they are. You don't control them.
Mm-hmm.
So you better have some tools that relieve the anxiety of a power struggle and of someone feeling controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, obviously offering choices and being respectful.
Yeah.
Just being respectful of other people is a very satisfying experience for them.
Yeah.
And so, reducing anxiety through offering choices is always a brilliant option, regardless.
Yeah. And this is why we love Love and Logic as well. They've got so many resources with working with kids of all different situations, whether it's medical, mental, physical. I mean, it's just they've done their work. So
yeah, they are
huge
brilliant.
resource. I would be reaching out to look at what they have to help you be successful and loving this child well.
Mm-hmm.
So great question. Love it, Alex. Thanks so much for sharing. Okay, our next question comes to us from Sarah.
Hello, Danny and Brittany. Thank you for the wonderful content you create and the opportunity to share my question. I recently experienced narcissistic abuse at the hands of 2 people in lay leadership within my church, and I'm struggling with how to implement KYLO principles when it comes to such individuals. Through research, I've learned that experts agree several things about people with narcissistic behavior. They're highly manipulative, they frequently lie, their apologies are not sincere, but rather used to manipulate others. They are not believed to ever change, and they use information they glean from conversations about reconciliation to simply further manipulate the other person in the relationship. For these reasons, experts all seem to agree that the only advisable approach is to completely cut such people out of your life. They call this going no contact. It has been very difficult to reconcile this with KYLO principles, and I wonder if such people require a different tactic than the basic principles laid out in KYLO, because people with narcissistic tendencies simply take advantage of this love, grace, and compassion to manipulate and repeat their abusive cycles. I see a potential biblical basis for this in passages such as Matthew 15:13, 1 Timothy 3:1-5, 1 Corinthians 5:9-13, 2 Thessalonians 3:14-15, and Titus 3:10-11, which address not only how individuals, but the church as a whole is called to address certain types of individuals. This is a hot topic, and additional guidance will be very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
I'm not sure if that was a question or education.
I was kind of feeling the same. I think her experience is painful, hard.
Yeah.
And I think that she's trying to figure out how, I don't know, to be confrontive.
Well, you get in a situation with a real, clinically diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. You got your hands full,
Yeah.
right? And I understand it's back when I was growing up, if you saw a kid that was distracted, he was ADHD.
Right.
That kid's so ADHD. That's just, common conversation amongst parents. Saying, well, he's ADHD. Oh, it's ADD. He's like, you couldn't even really look at a boy generally and not call him one of those things. And everybody was throwing that stuff around. You're like, okay, careful.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like it's going on now with a lot of kind of armchair psychologists that are on social media. So be really careful, because you think now what that does is it gives you a hopeless paradigm.
Mm.
This situation's hopeless.
Yeah.
This person can never change. Like,
There's
well,
no relationship.
I'm not sure where Jesus went.
Yeah.
I think we just nixed Jesus and the kingdom of heaven, but we found hopelessness. Here it is, right here. Like, okay, I think I understand what you're saying, which is you are super discouraged and you're hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a way to deal with people who are manipulative and abusive? Yes, there are. There are numerous ways that you would effectively deal with people that have zero problem and zero plan to adjust.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's a boundary.
Yeah.
Boom, here you go. Sit with this. I'll be glad to continue in this relationship when I can feel powerful and valuable and safe, protected from that thing that you keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time. I love you. Take the rest of our life. It's not up to me. But as soon as I can feel protected from that thing that leads you to lie all the time, protected from feeling manipulated because you don't respect that there's two people here, and feel valuable as someone to protect, I'd be glad to have this conversation with you. I'd be glad to continue in this relationship. So now I've just given them a target.
Yeah.
If you want to hit a target, there you go. You go to work on that. But if you don't, if you just want to keep doing the thing that you've been doing, fantastic. Keep doing it over there.
Yeah.
Do all you want over there. But the hope of reconciliation is there in the boundary. When people say, they're just a narcissist, cut them out of your life. This gives adult children classically a permission slip to get rid of their parents because it's a difficult relationship. I see it again and again and again. Oh, my mom's just a narcissist. My dad's just a narcissist. And the poor parents over there spinning because like, wow, you changed all the rules in our relationship. I don't even know how to keep up with this. Like, right. And there are no targets. There's no way to get back into this relationship. So those aren't boundaries. That's rejection. And if you have a manipulative spiritual leader, run away. Run away.
It's a great plan.
If you have a manipulative, abusive employer, run away. Get out of there. You have a choice.
Yeah.
But you don't have to build a federal case of accusation to justify that you have a standard of relationship that's required to ever get back into this conversation.
Yeah. I think that's great. I agree. No, done. That's all I'm going to say there. So, yeah. Hope you figured it out, Sarah. I do. All right. Well, I think we're going to jump into our testimony spot.
Okay.
And so we'll get to hear a testimony from someone, and her name is Teresa.
Hello, I'm Teresa, and I did Keeping Your Love on 5 times because I did not know how to communicate or have healthy relationships. After 5 times, it finally sank in and I got it. So I can control how I respond so that I can keep a connection with the people that God has placed in my life, especially my son. Knowing his love language, I can give him what he needs. I just don't have to give everyone access to all of our life. So I want to thank you for the resources of Keeping Your Love On.
5 times. She read it 5 times.
There you go.
I love the persistence. I love I know that there's something in here that I need to keep growing in or keep getting, and she just kept diving in. And it sounds like it's changing her dynamic with her son, which is the best thing you could hope for.
And there's an example of the depth of personal responsibility that you got to get it. And sometimes it's 40 feet down there but you got to keep digging and you got to keep going because you built such a mountain of delusion and denial and destruction that personal responsibility is way down there. And so you got to go get it. Yeah. And she went and got it. That's what you just heard right there is I had to expose myself to this stuff 5 different times to take personal responsibility in my important relationships. Like, right. It's for some people it's 1 foot. and they act like it's 40 feet, but it's still just 1 foot. But if you make a habit of it, it's always in your hand. You know, it's always right there. Like, oh gosh, I got to clean this up. Oh,
Yeah.
I am scaring you. I am hurting. You feel powerless in your experience with me. I don't want that to be that way. I'm going to listen better.
Yeah.
I'm going to adjust. I'm going to clean up whatever mess I've made as fast as I possibly can. Again and again and again and again and again. And eventually it becomes my character. It's just how I respond in my relationships. So I can have lots of awesome relationships because that's my character. But if I have personal responsibility digging to do every single time we discover we're different, there's not a lot of people. Maybe my mom will go there with me, but the rest of people
So
go,
gracious.
this is too hard, man. You're just
You
too
are
much. You're too much work. Go away.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how hard life is, and I can't believe how, many people are, this is a cruel world. Or you just haven't developed the personal responsibility in your character yet, and you constantly feel like a victim.
Watching our oldest have her first job, and she's learned how to get feedback that's someone other than us. Really, it's her first kind of
Scary
exposure.
stuff. This is scary stuff.
And I'm just like, she's telling me, I hate feedback. I'm like, nobody really likes feedback. It's what you do with it that matters, honey. What are you going to do with it? And she's doing a good job, but it's just it's the first time she's ever had to go digging in a way that
I'm so glad that her job's giving her feedback.
I know.
Yeah.
It's great.
Usually they just get frustrated and cut you loose when you're 16.
Her first job, she's
Yeah.
going to make lots of mistakes.
Yeah.
But it's great. It is, and it's that. I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep showing up. I keep getting this feedback. I want a different outcome. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then that's what Teresa's doing, which is great. And I love it. And, I love that she's, read it 5 times. She's probably done a few other things. She's doing the work. She's investing in herself. And, it's stories like Teresa that make us so thankful to have this organization, to have a place where people can come and find a resource that they needed. And it is amazing to be able to be that. And I think that if you didn't know that about Loving on Purpose, we are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit, so you get to tax deduction here.
Boom.
Whoop whoop. Everybody loves that, right?
Yep.
So it's stories like Teresa that she had a resource that was available to her. And I don't know how she got it. Could have been she purchased it. Could have been that it was given to her. I know we have KYLO evangelists. They would have cases of KYLO books in their trunk.
Wait a minute. I got a book in my car.
Totally. I had one lady had it on the dash button. I think is Amazon. She ordered it so many times. That was a recommended button. You order this book so many times to give away to people, and that's just the beauty of our partners that are given to this organization is we get to share testimonies, and we're so thankful for them. So if you didn't know, you can go ahead and donate to lovingonpurpose.com and help us keep creating amazing testimonies of families that are chasing down whole healthy families that are going to save the world. That's something that they're embracing, and we're so thankful for it.
Yeah, it's so helpful to help us do the work that we do is to have partners, to have people that are getting these tools, these opportunities into the hands of other people and keeping us going.
Yeah.
I don't travel like I used to.
It's true.
Like barely.
You've got a tan like you've never had before because you're on that tractor so
I'm
much.
on that tractor. I'm at home, but but we're coming up with new ways to get the word out, to raise other people up, and it doesn't require traveling, but it does require partnerships.
Yeah.
And so we're so grateful for the partners that have they're coming out of the woodwork. I am so grateful.
It's amazing. It's super fun. So thank you again for listening to us here on the KYLO Show. And remember that whole healthy families are going to save the world. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Never miss an episode of The KYLO Show by subscribing to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch us on the Loving on Purpose YouTube channel. Don't forget to submit your questions and testimonies to thekyloshow.com. The KYLO Show is produced by Ali Armerding, co-produced by Ashley Beck and Anna Hill, sound engineered and edited by Taylor Silk, and show promoter Christian Zamora. Don't forget, whole healthy families gonna save the world.